Hi guys, thank you so much for joining this 7 days class. My name is Samuel Linus and I'm super excited to have you here. At NEDI, we are a peer-to-peer edtech platform that allow people to learn in peers, groups, and communities. It simply means that gone are those days when you'll be learning alone and you have questions to ask, but nobody to ask questions. You wish you're a part of a community. You wish you have a mentor. You wish you have a learning mate, somebody you guys can learn and grow with. But unfortunately, you're learning online, so there is no one like that. But with NEDI, you have access to all of those things and even more. When you enroll for our platform, you have access to a one-on-one mentor. You'll be able to schedule a clarity call with your instructor at will. You will also join a support group where you can ask questions at any point in time. You will also be part of a weekly live class where you'll be learning and growing with other people. And guess what? You will also be paired with an accountability partner, somebody that you guys can learn and grow with and also build rapport as you advance in your career. And at the end of the career roadmap, you also get personalized portfolio review and job support. Don't forget to go on our platform and turn on your subscription. It's just a monthly token. That being said, don't forget to also subscribe on this particular YouTube channel so you'll be notified when we upload subsequent lessons, right? So without wasting much of our time, let's get into this particular video. Now let's get started with JavaScript in 7 days. What exactly is JavaScript? JavaScript is the most popular lightweight interpreted compiled programming language. It can be used for both client-side as well as server-side development. JavaScript, also known as a scripting language for web pages. So basically, initially when JavaScript was invented in 1995, JavaScript was meant to be for the client side. Client side simply means that JavaScript is the programming language that runs on the web, right? In other words, you will not be able to run JavaScript at the server side of your application, which in other words is called the back end. But in recent time, with development like Node.js, we can now also run JavaScript on the back end as well. So, and that is why right now we can confidently say that JavaScript can be run both on the client side and also on the server side as well, which simply means both on front end and on back end as well. So let's take a look at some of the versions that JavaScript has had over the years. For versions, it was invented in the year 1995 by Braden Eich, also known as ECMAScript. Over the years, JavaScript have lots of versions from ES1 to ES13. Right, so basically, JavaScript has been here for since 1995, and ever since we've started cutting the version of JavaScript, basically based on the year with new features released and is added into JavaScript, right? But in the industry, we have two major distinctive versions of JavaScript, which we normally call the ES5 JavaScript and also the ES6 JavaScript. Now, if we click on this particular link, so let's click on this link. So if you click on this particular link and you choose to follow that particular link, it will actually take you to a point where you'll be able to learn JavaScript. So let's take a look at it. So that link took me to a browser here. Let me bring it to you here. So this is the link here. So you'll be able to see several browsers, several versions of JavaScript from ES1, 1997, starting counting from 1997 actually, 1998, 1999, 2000. Right, so but basically we have like two major stable versions of JavaScript, which is the ES5 JavaScript, right, around 2015, and also the ES6 JavaScript that added some amazing features for us in JavaScript. But after ES6 from 2016, from 2015 when we have ES6, from 2015 JavaScript has already been counting from ES1. Every year you see it goes down to 2022 where we have ES13. Right, so we have several versions of JavaScript. So in this particular 7 days, you'll be learning majorly on ES5 JavaScript and also a little bit on ES6 JavaScript, which is one of the most popular versions of JavaScript that people write in our world today. Now, in order not to waste much of our time, let's get started with JavaScript. But before we start, what are the requirements? What are the things that you're supposed to know even before learning JavaScript, even before taking this particular course? One of the things that you should know already should be HTML and a little bit of CSS. So I'm assuming now that as you're taking this particular course, you already know HTML and you already know CSS. Now let's talk about the software. So our software will just be a simple web browser and as well our text editor that will be our VS Code. So basically, this is my web browser, my text editor, sorry, and this is where we're going to be writing our code. So I can basically just close this, right? So go ahead, install VS Code if you don't have it installed, and open your VS Code. So I already created a folder. I called it JavaScript 7 days inside of my tooth folder, and this is where I'll be storing all of the files. So you can do the same thing too. So all I need to do is just to click and drag it into my VS Code, and my folder will be added to it, right? So another way you could also add your folder is by clicking on File and also clicking on Open Folder, and go and select the folder inside of your system, right? Any way that you choose to do it, it will still link. Now that we have our folder here, you can see that everything is empty. It's big enough as the start screen. And the folder is empty. There is nothing in the folder. So let's try to create our first file. So the first file that we're going to create, I'm going to call it index.html. So because we are trying to write the JavaScript on the client side, right? So majority of what we'll be doing is to be attaching it to an HTML file. So we should be able to run it and also get to test and see what we are basically doing. Now that being said, I'll go ahead and write down my basic structure. So I'll use this shortcode as usual, which will be the exclamation mark, and hit enter. It will just basically come up with this basic HTML tags for us to start writing our HTML. So right here, I'll just say JavaScript, right? So I'm just going to say JavaScript in 7 days. So let's just type it here as the title of the particular content, JavaScript in 7 days. So this is me just basically preparing my document to start writing my first set of JavaScript. Now once I have this, I can go ahead and run it. Now I have one extension installed, just in case you don't know. The extension is called Live Server. So it's a very nice extension that allows you to actually run any piece of code and using hot reload, right? So you can go under your extension here, search for Live Server. You should be able to see something like this. Then go ahead and click on install. I already have it installed on my system. That's why you're saying on install. So you can go ahead, click on extension here, search for Live Server. You see it, click on it and click on install if you don't have Live Server installed. So I already have Live Server installed, so I'm going to go back to my file. In order for me to run this on a Live Server, all I need to do is to right click, and I'm going to see open with Live Server. So I'm going to click on open with Live Server. Now the moment I click on open with Live Server, it will open it for me inside of my browser. So I'm just going to minimize this a little bit like this so that I could actually bring in my Live Server. So this is where it has been opened for me instead of my browser. So let me just minimize it and put it just side by side. So basically any changes that we'll make right here now, if I type this is testing, right, it's basically just going to appear here and it's going to reload immediately. Now this is still me writing simple HTML. We've not started writing JavaScript yet. So now that we know all of these things, let's start writing JavaScript. Now before we start writing JavaScript, we need to know first and foremost, how do we add JavaScript inside a document? So basically, how can a JavaScript be included? So we have two ways that we could include JavaScript. The JavaScript can be included in the client side, in an internal inclusion or external file. So for us to do that, right, internally, we could type JavaScript inside a script tag. So we could come over here and type script like this. So if we type script, our JavaScript code lives inside here basically. So this is one of the places that we could actually include our JavaScript. So apart from the head section as well, we could also include our JavaScript at the body section somewhere here and type script tag and also include our JavaScript here. Now no matter where you include, the JavaScript will still work perfectly fine. Either you include your JavaScript in the head section or in the body section, JavaScript is still going to work really fine. Now that we know how we can include JavaScript, I'm just going to leave my script tag right here. So the next thing I actually want to talk about is what I would love to call statements. So basically, what are JavaScript statements? So statements, when it comes to programming, is any program, any programming instruction written in a program, in a programming language, are known as statements, right? So any programming instruction that you write inside a programming language is known as what is statement. So in most cases, JavaScript statement actually ends with semicolon. But nonetheless, with recent developments, you may not necessarily need to add those semicolon anymore, and it will still work. Now let's take a look at a simple JavaScript statement. A simple JavaScript statement could be you actually defining a variable. So let's call a variable name is equal to, for now, let's just say the name is Samuel, which is my name, right? And we're going to end it with a semicolon. So this particular line, which is a line of code actually, which is also a programming instruction. So we call this a programming instruction because this instruction is saying that the name here is Samuel. The name could be any other thing, right? So this particular line of code is called a statement. So from today, when you hear the word statement, you should actually know what comes to your mind. Now, before we proceed to start to learn more about JavaScript, we also want to learn what a keyword is in JavaScript. So what exactly is a keyword in JavaScript? So keywords in JavaScript are reserved words that we cannot use in our code. If not, it's going to what give us what errors. So let's take a look at some of the keywords that we cannot use. So these words are reserved words for JavaScript. For example, this var word here, which stands for variable, we cannot use it. You cannot say var is equal to, it's going to give you error, right? So you cannot use that. But if this is something else that is not var, for example, let's say this is radio, like this, you could see that there is no error whatsoever because it is not var. Now, of course, you cannot use var. You can also not use function. So function too is another reserved word. So you cannot create a variable and call it function. You cannot create a variable and call it let. You cannot create a variable and call it constant. These are reserved words. You cannot also create a variable and call it for. These are also reserved words as well. So these are some of the reserved words. So JavaScript has several reserved words that you cannot use. But anytime you use a reserved word, there is your text editor, in this case our VS Code, will definitely highlight it that we have an error there. So now that we know a little bit about reserved words, now let's talk about variables. So what exactly are variables when it comes to JavaScript? What exactly are variables? So let's treat what we call variables and 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 um and and data types. So what exactly are variables when it comes to JavaScript, right? So variables allow us to store information. Variables allow us to store information. For example, what you're seeing here is actually a variable. So this is me creating a variable called name, and I'm storing it. And what I'm storing in that particular name as an information is Samuel, right? So I could store something else. I could store another name. For example, I could store John. I could store Joy. I could store Yusuf, right? These are several names I could actually choose to store instead of my variable called name, right? So in other words, variable allow us to store a piece of information. Now that we know what a variable is, how do we define or declare a variable? So basically, if we want to declare a variable, we start with a keyword var. So var stands for variable, right? So with that particular keyword var, then with any name of our choice, it could be name, it could be username. So let's choose username. So it could be username. So anything that you like, you can actually use that to define a variable. So if we say variable username, for example, and say variable username is equal to anything that we want to give it, so the value. So the value that I want to give it here, this is what JavaScript called data types. So what exactly are data types? So in JavaScript, we have several data types. We have numbers, we have string, we have booleans, and other amazing data types. But I think these three are the three major data types that you need to know when it comes to JavaScript. For example, a string is a text. So when you see me or you see a variable that has what double quote, it simply means that what it is a string, right? So I want this particular variable to hold a data that is going to be text. So I'm going to include that particular text inside double quote. For example, I can say Samuel like this. So I can type Samuel, right? So inside the quote. So but I cannot just come and say username is equal to Samuel. If I do this, it is wrong. And JavaScript is going to throw me an error because JavaScript is going to assume that this Samuel is another variable that has been declared somewhere and it will be looking for it and it's going to throw me an error of what undefined. So I'll put it inside the code. So if I put it inside the code, it shows that now this is a text, right? Because of what? Those particular codes. So that is this particular data type now is called what? String. So there's another data type as well that we could also use that is called numbers. So for example, now if we want to use 100, for example, let's say username is 100, but let me not do that. Let me Control Z and leave it to name. Let me come over here and create another variable and say variable age. Variable age is equal to 30. So if variable age is equal to 30, it simply means that that particular 30 is a data type called number. So I cannot go ahead and do something like this, right? So if I do something like this, it might still work, but it is not fine because 30 is not a string, but 30 is a number. So anytime you're assigning number to a variable, you don't put it inside a quote. So another popular data type that we'll have in JavaScript as well is the Boolean. So what exactly is the Boolean data type? So the Boolean data type is yes or no. For example, I could say variable older, right? I could say true. So Boolean simply means it could be true, it could be false. So when you assign a Boolean to a variable, what you do is that you make it true or you make it false. So I can come over here right now. I can choose to make it false, right? So this is me assigning a variable and me calling it false, right? So any of those things, you are actually free to assign those variable. Now, so we have three data types that we've discussed. We've discussed string inside a quote. We've discussed number without a quote. We've discussed Boolean as well. That's going to be true or false, right? So that is how you basically assign a variable and also understand data types. So now that we understand data types and variable, the next thing that will allow us to get to know will be operators. So I'll just delete everything here and I would probably leave each, right? Okay, let me just delete this older one that is the Boolean. So what are operators? So operators in JavaScript allow us to carry some form of comparison or some form of action, right? Some form of instruction. So that is what operators do for us, right? So these are symbols that are used to manipulate a certain value or operand. So basically we use that to create statements, we use operators to create certain value. For example, I've used one operator right now, and the operator I've used is called the assignment operator. And this assignment operator is this particular equal sign here that you've seen me use. So we have like two major categories of operators basically in JavaScript. One of those operators is what we call the arithmetic operator, and the second one is the comparison operator. So what are arithmetic operators? So arithmetic operators are operators that allow us to carry out mathematical calculations. For example, 30 plus 5. At this particular point in time, plus here now is what? An operator. I could also say 30 minus 5. At this particular point in time, minus is an operator, right? So I'm saying 30 minus 5 and age is going to be 25, right? So these are all arithmetic operators. So we have the plus sign, we have the minus sign, we have the multiplication sign, right? We have the division sign as well. We also have the modulus sign. So all of these are all what? Arithmetic operators, right? So we have other operators too. For example, if we have an operator that looks like this is plus plus. This is an increment operator. Why? This is also a decrement operator, right? So and we could have several of those operators. So apart from arithmetic operators, one other thing again that we have is what we call the comparison operators. So what are comparison operators? We have comparison operators like 30 greater than 90, right, which is not true. So this is going to return false actually. So something like this, a comparison operator. So we could say 30 less than 90. We could say 30 divided by 90. So these are no, not divided by. So 30 less than, 30 greater than, 30 less than or equal to, 30 greater than or equal to. So all of these are all comparison operator. Or 30 exactly equal to, this is an exactly equal to, right? And 30 not equal to. So this is also an example of what? An operator. So all of these things I've mentioned, they are all example of what? Operators. Now that we know that, the last and final thing that I want us to treat in this particular video is how do we display our information in JavaScript. So we have several ways you could actually display data to your user in JavaScript, but I'm going to show us two major ways that we can be using in this course just to learn as we start to learn the basics of JavaScript. Now the first thing I'm going to show us is that I'm going to delete this particular line totally, and I want to show my username. So the first thing I could use a JavaScript pre-inbuilt function called alert. So I could say alert username, right? So this will allow me to actually show that particular name. So if I save this right now, I will have all of this. So we have alert username, and we'll come over here right now. You could see it's showing me this particular website is alerting Samuel. So if I click OK, it basically goes off. So if I change this to John or any other name, it's going to alert John, right? So that is the job of that particular alert. It brings out this particular pop-up and will enable us to see what we want to do. So another ways that we can also see what we are working on is console.log. So just say console.log. So what happened is that it's going to display it inside of our console. But right here on our browser, right, we're saying it's not our console. So for you to be able to access your console, let's maximize this. So the first thing I want to do is to right click and you click on what? Inspect. Try to use Chrome browser, right? I'm using Chrome browser. So if you don't have Chrome browser, you might actually want to install a Chrome browser. It is recommended. So once I have this here, I will see this particular line here. I can just easily click on it and I'll go towards console. So let me bring this a little bit, right? So right now I could see John as I put inside that particular area here. So we could choose to click over here and even change our console to just be beneath it like this, which if you ask me, I think is also cool. So it just actually enables us to have more space for this, right? So we could this is our console. Right now I could see John, right? So anything I put here, for example, let me put Samuel, that will be able to actually show it for me there, and it's going to say what? Samuel, right? So these are things that we could actually do at ease while we are adding JavaScript into our code, right? So apart from all of these things that we've treated so far, so good, in the next video, we'll be learning more on JavaScript. So see you guys in the next video.